It is the 3rd of January and I wanted to make a video all about the things that I love to do in the new year, because if there's anything about me, it's that I love all things New Year's planning, goal resolutions. I'm a super sentimental person and I love doing this. One, to set the intention going forward, but also because I love looking back at the end of the year and in years to come. And as someone that does love planning for the new year, I am very picky with what I like to do, because I do think that what you do at the beginning of the year can really help set the scene and kind of guide where your year goes. But I am a lot more free-spirited with this kind of thing. I have found over the years that setting really rigid goals and really breaking them down into tiny steps and doing all that kind of stuff, that doesn't work for me at all. I am more of a set vibe resolutions, or set resolutions and then let life take its course. It's just, it doesn't work for me to have very, very, very strict things that I need to do and not have any wiggle room. I used to love doing it, but I don't find it very helpful. No, it doesn't work for me. So this is more about intention setting for the new year. So I thought I would make a video and tell you all of the practices or things that I do in the new year to set myself up for the best year that I can have and to achieve as much as I can in that year, but also be free enough to let things happen how they need to happen. Over the past 2 years, I've become a big scrapbook girl. All of my planning either is in my journal or in my scrapbook. A lot of the stuff I'll be talking about will be from my scrapbook and things I do in my scrapbook, but you can do them in a journal, on a scrap piece of paper, on your computer, whatever. The exercise is transferable. I just like to have it in my scrapbook. Probably the most important and the most pivotal thing that I do at this time of year that I've been doing for yonks, for so many years now. I started actually in 2019, and it's that I choose a word of the year. So this will be my 7th year. I cannot overstate how much this practice has changed my life, and you wouldn't think it would. I didn't think it would, but choosing a word of the year and then almost forgetting about it, like it's not something I think about that consciously in my day-to-day. I'm always so shocked at the end of the year when I look back and I see how my word manifested without me even trying, if that makes sense. So what is a word of the year? I choose one word, and that word is what I am trying to cultivate in the year. It's usually pretty broad and there's usually a pretty strong feeling behind it. I generally don't sit and think about what I want my word to be. It just sort of hits me and I go, yes, that's my word. And I haven't actually decided on my 2026 word yet. I'm still waiting for it to come to me. I know the vibe of the word, but I just haven't fell onto the perfect word yet to encapsulate what I'm trying to do and be and become and experience this year and cultivate and all that stuff. But some examples from the past, in case you're wondering, is that the first year that I did a word of the year, my word was growth. And that year was crazy for me because that year I got into my first relationship, which I'm still in. So that was pretty big growth. And also that year I went on an exchange and I lived by myself on the other side of the world for half the year. And it was the most challenging thing I could have done. And then to do that long distance for 5 months of the first year that I was with Jackson was crazy. And that was very challenging. And I think that in that experience, I actually really became the person I wanted to be. I wanted to become more independent and confident. And I just wanted to feel like that pivotal experience where people feel like they've grown into themselves. And that year was my year of growth. In 2020, it's actually a funny one because I chose productivity as my word of the year. And I really can't overstate how much your word of the year shapes your year, because I chose productivity. And then the first 6 months of 2020, we all got into this kind of like pandemic burnout thing where everyone felt like they had to be productive all the time because we were all at home, and like I couldn't even rest. I felt like I had to go for a walk if I was having a break. Like I couldn't even just sit down, and that burned me out so much that I ended up actually doing 2 words that year. The first half of the year was productivity, and then the second half I changed my word to balance, because productivity was manifesting itself so much in my life that I really needed to learn how to balance. So you can change your word, but even just setting that intention at the beginning of the year just shapes everything I do so much without me even consciously thinking about it. Some other examples that I've used in the past is calm. That year I really learned how to regulate my nervous system. Another word I've really loved is that this last year, 2025, my word was fun. And it's been a really interesting year because sometimes I find that it takes the span of the year to get to that word because you're learning the lessons you need to get there. I actually write a letter to the new year, like dear 2025, dear 2026, and I write this letter letter asking the year what I want from it. And that's usually centered around my word. So it's a great way to flesh out why you want that word to be your word and what it means to you. It's such a great way to know what you're looking for and to set an intention with the universe of what you want to have and experience and feel that year. So as an example, I'll read you a little bit of the letter I wrote to myself. Dear 2025, this year I'm asking for something a little different. This year I'm on a quest to bring fun back into my life. I'm tired of rushing to the end of everything, expecting to find happiness only to realize it eludes me still and I've missed out on all of the glorious, messy, magical moments in the middle. It goes on and on and on. And it really manifested by the end of the year. I struggled to get to this point, but I knew by putting fun as my word, I would get there. So that's the point, okay? So do that. The other thing I do is I write myself a letter to open at the beginning of the next year. So in 12 months time, you write yourself a letter for that version of you to open and you say, open January 2026. And then you have a little letter from your past self to your future self. And then it's really cool to read when you get to it in the new year. I actually already read this on camera for a different video, which I don't know if I'll put in that video, but I might put snippets of that in here. Maybe with my raw reaction. I did this letter to me open 2026. It is the 1st of January and that means that I can open this letter. I have no idea what I wrote in here. I do not remember at all. Okay, I wrote this on the 12th of January of last year. Dear Jessie, how are things going? Another year has passed now. I hope that our life has changed drastically over the past 12 months, all in positive ways. First of all, I hope that you had a fun year and learned how to raise your happiness threshold and master your emotions. I know I have a long way to go with my mindset, even though we've come so far already, but I really hope we are more confident and content within ourselves than ever. I hope 2025 was the year that you got everything you wished for. So that's pretty cool, and that letter far exceeded my expectations, and it's so funny. And I'm really excited to write myself another letter and then read that at the beginning of next year. So to start off this letter, I asked myself, how are things going? Another year has passed. I hope that our life has changed drastically over the past 12 months in positive ways. And then I go into talking about specific things. Did you move overseas like you planned? Or did you get that dog? I ask questions for things that I expect to happen that year so that I can remember that I was expecting them to happen. And then I can think about that they happened when I read this. Then I kind of go into my goals more specifically, so like if you had a goal of running a marathon, I would talk about that. And then I finish it off saying just like general things you want to feel at the end of the year. And then I finished it off saying, I hope you're really, truly, utterly, and unshakably happy. And that was so nice to read to myself. Wow. And I really didn't think I put much effort into my letter this year. And I was a bit worried to open it because I thought it's so short and I don't think I really got, I kind of rushed it, but it did mean so much to me even though I rushed it. I actually wrote myself a response to my letter and I answered all my questions and wrote about how the year actually went versus how I hoped it went. And I thought that was such a good idea. And that was kind of like a thank you to 2025 for me this year. It was, and I think it's really good because when I look back on my scrapbook and I open my letter to my future self, I can not only read what I hoped for that year, but also how that year went. And I think that's just so special because it's a great way to commemorate like where you are. Because something I learned in 2025 was that a lot of the things that I was hoping to learn for myself and about the world and personal growth I was trying to achieve, a lot of that happened in ways I didn't expect. And a lot of that happened through the challenges. In my letter, I hoped for myself to achieve certain things, to feel certain ways, or to learn certain lessons. And in real life, I reflected back that I learnt those lessons in the absence of the things I wanted to achieve or have. And I think learning those lessons helps you achieve and get what you actually want. So it was really interesting to see how what I asked for manifested in ways that I couldn't have predicted or, done for myself, obviously, because I didn't even know to ask for it like that. So that was really good. The next thing is something that we all talk about, which is a vision board. But I do a vision vibe board rather than like a vision board. Sometimes my vision board is the same things and I feel like I never achieve them and it feels very like stale. So I like to do a vibe board of more like who I want to be and how I want to feel than specific things I want to achieve. So when you're doing your vision board this year, maybe think about doing a bit of a vibe check board, because I think what's meant for us is going to find us, but we need to be open enough to letting it in because sometimes it's not what we're expecting. The next thing I did was an ins and outs list. This was just a fun little scrapbook spread. Again, you don't have to do this in your scrapbook. You can do this in your journal or on your computer, but I think it's so fun to write your ins and outs because it's basically what do you want more of this year and what do you want to leave behind. So for example, in 2025, my ins list was more scrapbooking, reading, doing a reading journal, early mornings and sunsets, and living in the moment. And then some of my outs standouts were doom scrolling, being too serious, having really late nights, overthinking, and negative self-talk. Another fun one can be a favorites spread where you do a list of things that are your favorites in January, and then you fill it in December, and you see how your priorities have changed, or your opinions and your taste has changed. So that's really fun. And I also think it's so fun to do a bucket list for the year. I did mine in the form of a bingo card. This is so popular in scrapbooking, not reinventing the wheel here, but so fun. I actually have to color in 2 more of these, so I only didn't have 3 of them done, but that's pretty good. Some of the year didn't go how I expected. I was 3 books off my reading goal for the year, so it's not about how much you read, it's about the quality and if you enjoy it. It's just such a good way to have more little moments in your life that are celebrated and not be waiting for the big things to like actually live. So we love doing a bucket list bingo card type situation. It can also really shape your year, because what you put on your bucket list / bingo card is the things you'll be doing in the month to month / day to day. So, you know, if you want to have more of an active year, you can do workout classes, or if you want to have more of a social year, you can put in social events that you want to have, or if you want to have a more adventurous year, you can have hikes or sightseeing or staycations or long weekend getaways, and that really shapes how you see the year at the end. The last thing is obviously goal setting. With goal setting, I think most people do very tangible goals, like I want to run a marathon, or I want to save $10,000 or something like that, you know, very like tangible goals. You clearly can see when and if you've achieved them, because they're quantitative, you know, they're not qualitative, and you know when you've achieved it or if you haven't achieved it. Reading 40 books, for example, as your book goal. If you've only read 37, you haven't reached 40. So that's how most people set goals, and that's how I set goals kind of. So a few years ago, I decided that when I did my New Year's resolutions, I would set goals and then I would set resolutions, and they were 2 different things for me. So goals were the very tangible, trackable things like run a half marathon or read 40 books or save $10,000, right? And then resolutions were more character traits I was trying to embody during the new year. So for example, a New Year's resolution for me would be walk more places, or I want to play the piano more. That's not a goal because I can't measure it, because I'm not saying play the piano this many times a week for this many minutes. It's more, I just want to be someone who goes to the piano more and plays more, or I want to be someone who eats more at home. So my resolution is to cook more. And it's not so much of an achieving it or not achieving it. It's more of like working towards something. So that's how I was doing my goals and my resolutions. So then this year, most of my goals are intangible things that I want to embody within myself and in my life in the new year. And then there was a few little actual tangible goals, but most things were just resolution-y vibe based. And this was last year, 2025. So for example, in health and wellness, one of my goals was to prioritize slow, gentle movement and care for myself, which I really feel like I did. And in my relationships, one of my goals was to do more things alone. And another one of my goals was to listen fully and give my full attention to people when I'm talking to them and they're talking to me. And so that's not like a goal in the sense that you can't track it, but it was a personal goal I had for myself, like a resolution. I wanted to be someone who gave my full attention more and better. Self-growth, I had less doom scrolling, lean into my intuition. Again, not things you can really track except on judging how I feel at the end of the year. And in other, one of my goals was to romanticize and document my life, invest more time and energy into my hobbies, and have more fun and enjoy life more. And I really think I did those things, and it's really nice to look back at my goals and feel like I achieved and accomplished a lot based on how I felt and how I enjoyed life. So if you're someone that doesn't really vibe with the traditional, very structured goal setting for the whole year because it's just such a long time and you feel like you get to the end of the year and you haven't done any of the things because it's kind of just, it just doesn't work for you, like it didn't work for me, definitely try this and see how that works for you, because for me, I love it because it makes New Year planning fun and it's more about the possibility of the year and it's less draining. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I haven't done my goal setting and my 2026 planning. I've only written my response letter to myself from last year because we leave and we move to Europe in 4 days. So I've been busy doing that, but I really wanted to sit down and film this video while I still had my scrapbook with me. So now that this video is filmed, I think that once I go there and I get to Singapore and then Europe, I'll have a bit more downtime and I will get into my goal planning. I don't like to rush it. If it takes me to the end of January, that is absolutely fine. And this year is going to look a little bit different for me because I am moving overseas. So pretty much my only goals are to document the whole thing and to enjoy it. I don't have anything else I want to achieve except really being present and having a fun and adventurous and amazing year. And then yeah, putting it on the internet and in my scrapbook and in my journal and just really capturing it. I think it's going to be really fun, but I will be doing a new scrapbook over there. I just haven't bought it because I want to buy my new scrapbook in London. If anybody from London or anyone that's been to London watches this video and you know where I can get a scrapbook type journal, please let me know, because I will be on the hunt for one in like not very long, in like a week and a half. Thank you for watching, and I guess I will see you in the next one. Bye.